Hi everyone. I wanted to make a special review video. Recently I've seen a couple of videos where people are unboxing basically a new Blu-ray set that's produced by a company called Arrow. It's a double disc set, 2 movies along with a few booklets. And the films are done by Godfrey Reggio, a rather unique set right here. One of them is Koyaanisqatsi, and I own a copy of this movie as well. Koyaanisqatsi is basically a documentary, a very unique documentary. If you can see that. Sorry if there's reflections there, I really can't tell. But it's a very unusual documentary in the sense that it doesn't have a clear-cut story, and there's no people being interviewed on camera or even just audio, and there's no narration, anything like that. But it's a very compelling film. I've included links below to the unboxing videos by FilmGame Junkies and RazorWire Reviews, and actually Luke, RazorWire Review, just did a review of the first of those 2 movies. Liked it very much, and I myself like this film quite a lot as well. I was introduced to it by a close friend of mine. I think it was probably in the early 90s, or maybe the late 80s. The movie came out in 1983, so it just had its 30-year anniversary last year. I saw it on video a number of times, but kept missing opportunities to see it in the theater during revivals until its 20-year anniversary in 2003, in which I saw it basically with a couple of friends at a theater downtown, one of the most well-known Chicago theaters, where it was showing on a very, very large screen, a brand new print of it. And Philip Glass, the composer of the score, brought his orchestra to Chicago to accompany the film live, which was a very, very exciting experience. And they must have practiced a lot because they're right on the cues, right on the cuts. You know, although it's played live, so it sounds different from the soundtrack on the film itself. You know, it matches perfectly as far as the rhythm, the cuts, and everything like that. What is this movie about? This movie is basically about nature and man and how they interact with each other and what man has done with nature, I guess you could say. The first part of the movie shows a lot of natural landscapes, fields, mountainscapes, cloudscapes, and then it segues into the construction of buildings and large cities and what have you, and it goes through and shows a great deal of traffic running through streets, and time-lapse photography of buildings casting shadows on the ground. And you have large scenes devoted to factories processing all kinds of products all hours of the day. And then, of course, there's also destruction as well. You have archival footage of war, bombs exploding, tanks, planes, what have you. You have rockets going in the sky. You have a lot of footage of buildings being demolished many years after they've been constructed. One of the key pieces of the film is a piece called Pruitt-Igoe, and that's named after a housing project that they watched get demolished, basically. The Pruitt-Igoe housing project was like several large apartment buildings that had fallen into disarray and were just really sort of a bad scene. So they got to basically photograph all this stuff in slow motion of all the buildings being blown up by dynamite and collapsing to the ground. That's one of the most memorable pieces of music in the film. The movie is basically divided into sections by the music itself. It works more as a piece of music than it does a real film. It's like a large sort of symphony with accompanying visuals to match a particular theme of each segment. And if you look at the soundtrack, there's an upload of the soundtrack on YouTube. Again, it's divided basically. One of them is actually called Pruitt-Igoe, one of the selections on the soundtrack, and that segment of the movie is devoted to that sort of part of the film where they're showing all the demolitions, basically, and that music is focused on that, I guess you could say. It's a little bit hard to describe. It's really good to just sort of go in clean. Obviously, you're not going to do that now having watched this, but if it's something that you have the opportunity to see, I would recommend it, if that's something that interests you. Obviously, people prefer dialogue, they prefer characters. Even in documentary, you know, you have a story being told to you, whereas this is something that just it's more of an arrangement of themes, really. Themes involving nature versus man-made environments, and of course construction, destruction, arid areas of the country that are free from people versus areas that are packed densely with people and populated and what have you. It was shot mostly during the late 70s and a little bit during the early 80s, and there were 2 follow-up films, one of which is included in the Arrow Blu-ray. It's called Koyaanisqatsi. And also, I'm told that one of the extras on the disc is a film that's about half an hour long. It was very similar in style, called Anima Mundi, which is also scored by Philip Glass, and I believe is directed by Reggio as well. There was a 3rd film made in the series called Not Koyaanisqatsi, but it's not actually part of the Arrow Blu-ray set. There is actually a package that contains all 3 films as well as a number of extras. The cinematographer Ron Fricke also went on to do a couple films of his own, one of which is called Baraka, and the second came out just like 1 or 2 years ago. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's very similar in style. They're all very similar in style in the sense that it's mostly just imagery and music without a real sort of concrete story to go along with it. But the original for me is absolutely the best. This is a really exciting film for me to see and rewatch, especially having watched it so many times at home. Getting to see it in the theater 11 years ago the way I did was just a very, very moving experience. Seeing the incredible time-lapse photography and all the detail and all the streets and everything like that. So if you've got a big, big TV, 50 inches or whatever, you want to get that Blu-ray because all that detail is really, really incredible. Hearing the music, of course, played in a theater was just amazing. I kind of couldn't help but cry a little bit during the first part because I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually here watching this movie in the theater finally after 15 years of loving it. Yeah, and those time-lapse shots, the fast motion shots rocketing through city streets. They'll basically attach the camera to a car and then drive the car through this way and that way of the expressway, and you're watching it at high speed. It's just very, very exciting. So yeah, if you've got the opportunity to see this at some theater that's playing it as a revival, do it. Definitely do it. Short of that, your best option is to get one of those Blu-rays and really get a nice monitor to watch it on because it's quite an experience. There are a few movies that I think are improved dramatically by watching it on a huge screen. Gravity is one of those. I think it's a great big screen movie. And there are a few movies like Apocalypse Now, or The Thin Red Line, or the Brad Pitt, Casey Affleck Western called The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Have incredible shots, just incredible lighting and photography, and just seeing those on a huge screen like that. Also, most films by Stanley Kubrick you'll want to check out on the big screen. Not just the big scale epics like Lord of the Rings or what have you. A lot of those movies have too much CGI, and so the image kind of gets a little bit muddy and blurry. And doesn't look quite good enough, whereas you've got the actual image photographed by a camera on location that hasn't really been tampered with. There's a big difference there between that and scenes that have been put together in post-production. At least I feel that there is. So yeah, there's my little review of Koyaanisqatsi. I hope I did a good job describing it for you. Yeah, again, if you haven't already, please take a look at the videos by RazorWire Reviews and FilmGame Junkies. Give you a much better idea of what all is in that set because it's well worth seeking out. Thanks very much for watching. See you again real soon.